What's going on, YouTube? We're back at it for another video, and today we're talking about Rainbow Six Extraction. More specifically, tips and tricks that are going to help you out with your play experience overall when it comes to this game, especially with the fact that it's a bit higher skill gap when it comes to this game. If you don't have much knowledge with it or understanding of the objectives, the operators, and their abilities, how they can work and coincide with some of those objectives, along with some of the tech that can help you take down some of these enemies, or overall knowledge of knowing how to take down some of these enemies effectively, taking the minimal amount of damage, or just making it through without having to pull that early extraction or having to extract one of your buddies or random teammates that you may be running with. Now, one of the biggest reasons for making this type of video is the simple fact that my random queue experience has been quite frustrating, to say the least. Some of the players I've been playing with have obviously felt like they never played games before in their life, but at the same time, some of them just deciding to go to that harder difficulty, as we've seen with Bag for Blood before. Somebody just coming straight out of Recruit, going straight in a Nightmare, not really knowing what they're doing, can be a huge hindrance on that mission and overall playtime. But at that same time, we're looking to maximize that experience from these runs. We're looking to maximize our ability to make it through these runs and give you the knowledge to help you better understand what you can utilize inside of this game and just make it an even more smooth and enjoyable experience for you overall. And at the same time, hopefully causing one of those trickle-down effects where maybe you watching this video can run in with some of those randoms, teach them some of the tips and tricks you've learned from this video, and make the overall random queue experience a bit better overall. But that being said, let's get straight into it. Now, the first thing that we need to talk about is the operators. Now, this is one thing that you need to familiarize yourself with. Obviously, you need to look at each one of these operators, especially as you unlock them, as you go through each one of the level progressions. In the beginning, you won't have every single operator, but the few that you have available to you, it's a good idea to go through, look at each one of them, how their abilities can be utilized in some of the objectives, and look at some of their upgrade possibilities as well. You really want to narrow this down and look into the loadouts that are going to be available to you at that same point. But I'll go through a little bit slowly and talk about some of the things that you'll be looking for. Only 3 of these operators I'll talk about right now. Obviously, I could go through each one of these operators, but that'd take more than enough time out of this video. It'd just make it too long, way too long. But if you'd like to see me make a video on each one of the operators, how they can be worked into different combinations to utilize best for certain objectives you'll be facing in some of these missions, let me know down in the comments. Be more than happy to make a video like that. But that being said, Pulse, perfect example of one of those operators that has a very niche ability that's very specific towards certain objectives, or in my opinion is. When it comes to certain missions that are more towards killing or eliminating certain enemies, capturing certain enemies, or possibly just in holdout moments, obviously Pulse isn't exactly suited for those objectives. But when it comes to something like VIP missions where you got to extract one of those VIP scientists, looking for a missing operator that somebody's lost in a previous run, or even just nest tracking, or I can't remember the name of it, but the one with the green nest that you need to destroy until you get to that final nest where you take a sample. In some of those moments, he's very specific with his ability that can be extremely beneficial for those objective type missions, considering he's got the cardiac sensor that detects the VIPs, the MIAs, and the nests. This can be extremely beneficial for you, especially since he can just pull that out at the very start of the mission, start looking around, and more than likely either get the location on that VIP or that missing operator, or just the nests in general that you may be looking out or looking for to take down, or even apply that tracking device to. Knowing where these are is going to be extremely helpful for you in locating them and being able to work around them, take out the enemies surrounding them, and be able to get to them in the most efficient manner and least dangerous possible manner. But at that same point, there will be operators that also have abilities that may be a bit more universal. Somebody like Finka, with her Adrenaline Surge ability, you'll be able to temporarily boost your teammates' response to survival, which just means they'll get a temporary boost to health and a little bit of speed at the same time for a short period of time. But at the same time, her ability, if somebody's down, doesn't matter where they are on the map, doesn't matter where you are on the map, if you pop that ability when they're down, instantly revives them, and this can work in junction with some of the tech that we'll talk about a little bit later on in this video. and be extremely beneficial to pretty much just about any run. Same point, Doc is one of those healer types at the same time, but with Doc you'll have the healing shots. Now with Finka, her ability will recharge over the 60-second time frame, but with Doc you'll have only 3 shots when it comes to his stim pistol. That'll heal for 25 and revive himself or revive teammates that are downed. So with this ability, you'll only get 3 shots with it, and if you miss that shot, well, that's a missed heal. That shot's not coming back, and you'll have to get to one of those recharge ability boxes in order to restock on that, which can be a bit detrimental to your team, especially if someone else on your team is a trapper or has some type of ability that needs that recharge to restock theirs for possibly later objectives down the road, especially if you're in one of those serial scan moments where you need that holdout position. You need some of those traps to help you out and holding out that position, because it can get a bit overwhelming at times in some of those moments, especially if there's tormentors at play. Whew. You definitely want somebody like Finka instead of Doc in one of those moments where they may be a bit more of a clutch carry, whereas in other times Doc may be useful in just maintaining that health or just maintaining that revive ability when it comes to shooting that down player from across a room. Even though Finka's ability may be a bit better, the one thing about Doc is the simple fact that he could do it 3 times in any short amount of time, whereas Finka can only do it once every 60 seconds. But you can tell from this point, or how to gather that, or comprehend, I'm losing my train of thought here, how to comprehend what you'll be looking for with some of these operators on how to utilize them for certain objectives you'll be facing in each one of these missions. But on that note, the next thing we need to look at is going to be the weapons. When it comes to our loadout, a lot of times you may think to yourself you need suppressors on every weapon. You think stealth is a huge portion of this game, and it kind of is. I'd say it's a 50-50 mark. Some of the missions, it's not really necessary, even on harder difficulties. As long as you're quick, you have solid aim, you can take out some of these people or some of these enemies before they can alert anything. As long as you're quick and reactive and or observant to your surroundings, making sure that you're clearing each corner, you don't exactly need to be on a full stealth basis. But when it comes to the suppressor, if you have it on your primary weapon, it's going to pretty much cut your damage in half. This is something I didn't know in the beginning, and it's definitely a noticeable change. Once you take it off, you'll get that pretty much double damage. And something like Tormentors, which used to feel really tanky for me at the beginning of the game, especially when using those suppressors on the primary weapons, once I took it off, I was able to melt Tormentors fairly quickly. As long as you're getting those critical hits to the head, you're going to be melting a lot of these, especially with some of these LMGs or just high damage weapons, high fire rate weapons. That damage increase is going to be extremely noticeable against any enemy type that you're going to be facing. Now that being said, especially for missions that may require a bit more stealth, something like nest tracking, you will still want that suppressor on. The biggest thing about the suppressor is all it does is not pull enemies to your location, whereas when you fire unsuppressed, those enemies will get pulled to your location. If they're close by, they hear that sound, it's not going to alert them immediately, it's just going to draw them to your location. So you could utilize that in certain instances where you see a doorway, you see those little footstep icons that are notifying you somebody's nearby or on the other side of the wall. Shoot near that doorway, be able to pull that enemy around the corner and then take them out before they can alert the rest of the nests and enemies around in that area. But at the same time, with something like, nest tracking, you will want to utilize that secondary as the stealth option. Keep the suppressor on that for those moments when you need to still keep it low key. With a pistol, you should be able to take out some of those smaller enemies still fairly quickly. As long as you've got some solid aim, you'll be popping those heads, taking them out as quick as possible, and then tracking those nests along the way as you take them out. Now, the next thing we need to talk about is tech. Now, when it comes to the tech, my personal opinion, the best throwables are going to be the stun grenade and then the paralysis grenade. Now, early on, you'll have the stun grenade, but you won't have the paralysis grenade unlocked quite just yet. But early on, the stun grenade is going to be pretty much perfect for you for those early starting missions and taking care of some of those heavier hitting enemies. Now, big difference between the stun grenade and the paralysis grenade is, as you'll notice with the stun grenade, we'll have a 2.5 seconds after impact that it'll detonate. So you have that small bit of time where that enemy could charge you or possibly move away from the stun grenade. So you kind of want to aim them properly, time them right in order to get up on that enemy. But with the paralysis grenade, it detonates on impact, so it's instant straight away. You'll be able to run up to that enemy and then take them down. Now, these two items are going to be perfect for the simple fact of taking down smashers, tormentors, or stunning any enemy in the game. No matter what enemy they are, there's nothing that's impervious to the stun. Even the Protean can be stunned, but I believe he does have a shorter duration of how long that stun lasts. Now, one thing to note about the stuns when it comes to dealing with the Smasher. Now, Smasher, instantly you can stun him, and then you can take him down with that one melee move, instantly wipe him out. Very effective, very easy, and minimize that damage possibly taken. But you will have to get up behind them. Now, when it comes to any other enemy besides the Apex and the Protean, or one thing I should note as well, if you have an elite Smasher, you can still stun it and you can still take it down, but it's not going to instantly kill it. It's only going to take a small amount of health, so you want to be making a note of that early on. Now, if it's gotten a bit low of health, you may be able to take it down with that final melee hit after stunning it, but you're generally going to have to team shoot on that one and take that one down, kind of kite it. But right after that, we've also got the Tormentor as well, or any other enemy besides the Apex and the Protean. You'll be able to come at them from any angle as they're stunned and be able to take them down, which is going to be perfect for those Tormentors. Sometimes they'll be wandering around by themselves or possibly with another enemy. And just like any other enemy, as soon as they see you, they could alert you. And the worst thing about those Tormentors, they can deal some heavy damage and they can liquefy themselves, move to a different area, then pop up. Now, you can't stun them while they're liquefied, obviously, but if you can get them before they start liquefying or possibly alerted, stun them right there, or stun an enemy next to them, take down that Tormentor from any angle, just run up to them, hit that melee, easy and effective. Now, sadly enough, the Apex is the only creature that you can't stun and then take down. You can't take them down at all. You can't even use melee on them. Anytime you get close to them, they'll have this force push ability. They'll push you back and deal damage to you. So that's one thing to note about the Apexes. Can be very problematic. They're probably one of the tankiest next to the Protean and the Smasher. And at the same time, if you're using a shotgun, don't get too close to them. Or if you're getting anywhere close to that Apex, make sure you're backing away from a far enough distance to be able to shoot them and not get that force push and take a good bit of damage, because it still does hurt a little bit less or bit more less than what his projectile attack does. But at that same point, you want to take minimal as damage as possible, especially with this game, considering the enemies hit a lot harder than most other games, even more so on harder difficulties. Now, that being said, the other throwable item, if you got two people on your team that are already going with that paralysis grenade or stun grenade, field wall is going to be an excellent option for that third guy, or possibly the other two. One person with stuns could be all that you really need. But with the field wall, you'll be able to put up a force field wall that can protect you from any projectile. Going to be perfect for some of those holdout moments when you're securing or planting some of those bombs, or possibly doing the serial scanning those, especially if you've got Tormentors or Apexes or just Spikers in general spawning in those moments. You already know, if you've already faced off against these enemy types, that they can hit very hard. It can be very irritating, and it could be a very quick run-ender right there. But with these, you can block any of those projectiles. And one of the very kind of niche special things about this is that you don't really need to utilize those crates in order to pick up more of these, because it'll have a certain amount of time that it'll be up. I don't know the exact time, but by the time it's getting close to where it's depleted on its energy, it'll start blinking a little bit, but you can pick it back up and then be able to throw it back out at full charge. So essentially, in any of those moments, you can kind of just pick one up, throw another one down if you still needed it, or possibly just pick it up for later and still have that maximum amount of field walls for the entire mission going forward. Now, when it comes to your gear, there's only two things that I'd highly suggest getting. Revive Kit is the number one specifically, because with the Revive Kit, as long as you have this on you, much varies, or similar to the body armor, but better than the body armor, considering as soon as you go down with the body armor, it takes it off, but you can keep getting downed with that body armor on you. Whereas if you have that Revive Kit, if you don't use it while you're down, somebody else picks you up. Instead of having that possibility of getting KO'd the next time, you'll go down again but not out. But at the same time, the more times you go down, the faster you'll be able to reach that KO. So you want to, you don't want to really rely on that ability to keep going down. You still want to be cautious. You know, you don't want to be taking all that damage. You don't want to just be going gung-ho, even though you can keep going down, because at some point it's going to get so fast to where you just almost get into that instant KO no matter whether or not you're going down. But with this is something you could utilize with Finka as well, where she can use that instant revive ability no matter, or infinitely, during any of these missions. So no matter how many times you go down, as long as she has that recharge ability back up, she'll be able to pop you back up as long as you still have this revive kit on you. Now, one thing to note about this, if it gets a bit hairy situation, you're possibly a little bit away from the team. They're not going to be able to make it to you and revive you in time, and you have to use it. You can get another one from the React Tech supply cases, the one that replenishes your grenades. This will also, these boxes, resupply any of those fortifications you possibly used early on. If you'll notice, when you come up to some of those walls, you only have 3 available to place up. With those React Tech supply cases, you're not only getting the grenades, but you'll possibly get your gear back, or you will get your revive kit back if that's the gear you're using, or even the body armor if that's what you're using, or the RC drone as well from these React Tech supply cases, along with those reinforcements. Now, if you got 2 people with that revive and you're not trying to just have every man with the 3 revive, and you're really all about pretty much precision and really mapping out the entire environment, the XR recon drone is going to be the best bet. Now, early on, you'll only have the recon drone, which doesn't exactly it doesn't ping things through walls. With the or the big difference is with the XR recon drone, you will be able to scan any of the enemy's objectives and supply cases through surfaces within an 8-meter radius. This is going to be even bigger of a benefit to those people that are just trying to like drop this down at the very beginning of a mission, map out the entire environment, or get halfway through and then try to map out the rest of it as you've gone a little bit further, gotten to a safe location where you can utilize this, and just know where everything is. That way you and your team can move swiftly through, take anything out, not alert any enemies, and just pretty much have one of those perfect runs. It's going to be extremely useful for you. Now, I wouldn't suggest going with the anabolic accelerant. Increasing the health by 50, really not going to be the hugest difference, especially if you're going to go down at some point. You more than likely have an infinite revive ability is going to be a whole lot better than possibly having just 50 added health. Who knows how much damage you could take. You don't know what you're going to come across in the next zone or possibly around the next corner. Anything could happen, and that added health isn't going to be or amount to as much as that revive kit is going to be. Now, at the same time, ammo satchel, not going to be necessary. You're more than likely going to find all the ammo you could possibly need. An explosive harness, an additional 3 sounds nice, but at the same time, you're going to find more than enough of those React Tech supply cases to keep that supply of grenades going. You're going to have more than enough, and especially if you have other teammates that have their own stun grenades or possibly field walls, you're going to have more than enough that you'll need to not have to have an additional 3 available at the beginning of a mission. And the next tip, obviously, you've already encountered these, or if you haven't played the game, I don't know, maybe you're just watching this before you even jump into the game, just to get some of those tips and tricks and knowledge before you roll in. Another reason why the stuns are so great is some of the spores that you'll notice, those yellow balls, God, worse than blue balls right there. Every time they get stuck to you, you're either going to have one of your teammates shooting you, or you're possibly going through that tedious task of shooting each one individually and just wasting a little bit of time right there, slowing you down before making it to that next objective. You can either, as soon as they attach to you, drop a stun grenade on yourself that will completely obliterate them and pull them off of you, but the best in-slot way to deal with those spores, promise you, is going to be having one person run up to them, get them all on them, and then have one of your teammates, or you or one of your teammates, melee that person. It's only going to take 1 to 2 melee hits. It's really quick, really easy to get done. Some of those hairy situations that may be a bit more difficult, obviously. In some of those situations, you may just want to drop down that stun grenade, or if you're by yourself, teammates aren't close enough, drop that stun grenade. But at the same time, if you can get, or if you run across these, you don't have any pressure to really need to move really quickly or take something out, immediately just have one person get all those spores on them and just melee them one time or two times. It's really quick, really easy to get rid of them. Now, another tip that's going to be extremely helpful for some of those people out there that may be running low on ammo, possibly running low on health, maybe need some ability recharge, or possibly even some of those tech cases that are refilling the revive kit or the grenades, is going to be that if you hit the middle button on your controller, whatever controller you're using, or I believe the tab key on mouse and keyboard, you'll be able to pull up the menu that shows you the 3 objectives you'll be going for in that mission. And it'll also, in the bottom left corner, at the very bottom, there'll be a line that has the icon symbols for each of those cases for ammo, health, stun. Oh, I'm losing my train of thought here. All of those different boxes that recharge abilities and does all of that, and it'll show each of those icons with a number right next to it. That is going to be the available cases that will be in that one zone that you're in right there. Now, some of those cases could be in that next safe room area or in the previous safe room if you didn't grab everything out of there previously, but it'll also show the number of those items that are available in that zone area. So sometimes might be a good idea to check that. If you're low on health, you probably cleared the area out a bit, may need to just move about, search around, and if you have somebody like IQ, they can see that stuff through their scanner and be able to ping those for other people. But it's a good way to just check in case maybe you possibly need a little bit more of that health before the next zone, or you need a little bit more ammo, you haven't found any before that, you kind of been moving pretty quick through it, didn't really think about it, looked over a couple of ammo cases. It's one good idea, or one good reference to check and just see if that's available for you in that zone before pushing to the next area and being fully resupplied for that next zone. Now, another tip, if you're trying to level up some of these operators fairly quickly, you want to really maximize that level, try to get it up to 10 as quick as possible. One of the best ways that you're going to be able to do this is to go into any one of these missions and just immediately go onto the cautious difficulty. Now, I know obviously with severe and critical, you're going to have that objective percentage go up by quite a substantial amount. But when it comes to cautious, especially if you're going in solo, it's going to be a whole lot easier. There's no bots in this game. And so the enemies are going to be at a dramatically reduced amount compared to that in a 3-player co-op version of this. And going in on cautious, it just means you can get through it a lot quicker. Some of these you can just really run through it. Any of the operators can do this. Any solo mission, more than likely, especially with the level of cautious, you can take in a level 1 operator and get them all the way up to 3 or level 4 in just one run. Pretty much only takes about 15 minutes at max. You could probably even do it quicker than that and get each one of the objectives done, extract, and then be able to do this over and over. You get about 20,000 XP per run of this on cautious, and it's going to be a huge XP gain. And if you want to get to that level 10 as quick as possible, this is going to be one of the fastest ways to get it done. Now, if you're not a fan of solo play, sadly enough, if you're trying to go through this cautious method where you're going to go through each of these missions only on the cautious difficulty, trying to get it done as quick as possible, maximize that XP gain in the fastest amount of time, you're going to have to go to San Francisco for quick play. For whatever reason, the level of severity when it comes to just trying to play with randoms, you can't just click on one of the missions and then roll in with randoms at whatever selected difficulty you want. You'll need other players that you'll need to invite on your friends list in order to get that done. But if you start going to Alaska and you go to quick play, it's going to be automatically set to severe, and then truth or consequences is going to be set to critical every time you hit the quick play. So if you want that different variety of maps, you're more than likely going to have to do it solo or have friends with you. Or if you just need, or you just want to play it with 2 other players, just have, you don't feel like you're up to that solo experience, then you're just going to have to go with the San Francisco to maximize the amount of time that you can make it through. But at the same time, if you do play it with 2 other randoms, they could mess around. They could end up making it a little bit harder on you. If one of them goes down or KOs, there's still going to be that increased enemy amount compared to that of you running in at solo. And it may take you a bit longer. So that's one thing to note about that. But that's one way to really quickly level up some of these operators as fast as possible. More than likely, within an hour or 2, you could get one of these up to 10 within that time, if not a little bit shorter, as depending on how fast you're making it through some of these missions. Now, one thing to note also about some of these solo runs, if you're really trying to get that map knowledge down, these maps aren't going to change. The only thing that's going to change is the objectives and where some of the enemies spawn. But if you really want to, study some of these before you go into harder difficulties, I'd suggest just going on moderate, take out all the enemies, and just kind of learn the pathways that you can take, look at the angles that you can go around, the ins and outs of it, and just have that map knowledge for later when something may go wrong. You may be getting overwhelmed, but there's a little bit of an exit route right there. You can move around to that and then make it on to that next safe room area. Could be beneficial for you, could be one of those things for just people that just want to gather that knowledge a bit better, or just have a better understanding of each of the maps that they're rolling through. That way they can work around the objectives, and generally the objectives may be spawning in some of the very similar spots across the different missions that you'll be running. Maybe the same objective, or maybe a little bit different, or will be the same objective, maybe the same objective site that you'll see it on, especially if you're playing the Maelstrom protocol. Each one of these, no matter what the objective or mission, it's always going to be in the same spot the next time you run through it. And I'm pretty sure when it comes to those objectives, replaying it on certain missions in the same area you've played before, more than likely they're going to be in the same area. Now, with some of these objectives, such as Shutdown, there may be one thing that you may not know about this, probably didn't even notice, something I didn't notice for quite some time. But once you get all three of these down inside of that, say you have one of those moments where you're the final one that needs to put down that foam insulator or whatever it is on top of this spire that they have. If you've got a lot of enemies around you, possibly a teammate down, enemies are closing in, sometimes it may be best bet to throw that last foam down, because as soon as you load that last foam in, everything in the vicinity, not just the nests, even the enemies, are going to be completely destroyed. So that could be one of those things to keep in mind in one of these types of missions. Maybe things are getting a bit hectic. You got some tormentors, spikers, getting a little bit overrun, possibly one guy rushed in, you're following behind them, you didn't clear the area beforehand. It's one of those moments that could save that run, or possibly just save your operator. Who knows, the other teammates may go down, but if you can finish that objective and survive yourself, that's going to be beneficial for not only you but the team as well, because you'll be able to extract them, or just be able to extract with everybody and gain that maximum XP. Now, another thing to note, this is one thing that I have to state out there, this is very frustrating: triangulation. When it comes to the three objectives with this, you want to clear this map every time you have this objective. You want to make sure that you find each one of these little laptops that you need to secure and then hit in this timed sequence. Because if you don't clear it out, I've had several times where some random just automatically finds the point A where you can start it up, and then obviously it will show you where the point B and point C is, but especially on harder difficulties, the timer is going to get reduced, and if you haven't cleared this area, you may start running into more enemies than you may have predicted might have been there, and it's not going to be as easy to hit that B and then that C possibly. You may have to take out some of these enemies, cut down on that time, and you could end up failing this. And I have failed this multiple times because people will immediately hit that A button. If you have somebody like IQ on the team, it's going to be perfect for you. She can use that scanner to immediately find out where any one of these laptops are through through the walls themselves. So that way you'll be able to know where they are, go to those locations and clear them out. That way, once you do start it, or possibly have all three people at each one of the laptops, that way to make sure each one of them is going to get hit and there's no hoopla that may happen in between one of these moments that could end up costing you this. I've also had this moment happen on the Maelstrom protocol where some random decided they were going to hit the A without clearing out. There was a bunch of exploders off inside of this parking garage. I couldn't make it through over to the B location. I kept having to deal with these over and over. He ended up going down trying to run for it, and it just ruins the run, costs you the whole Maelstrom protocol. If you've even done it before, it's 9 different objectives straight in a row, and just failing one of them is going to completely destroy the run, if not have cost you pretty much a long time. I mean, at the most, Maelstrom protocol could take up to an hour for one run, and if you've already put in 30 minutes by the time you hit this triangulation mission and that one random ruins out, I mean, that is some wasted time right there. Don't be that guy. Do not hit that A1. Clear out the B and C. Make sure you know where they're at and get it done. Yes. I can't tell you how frustrating it can be in some of those moments when randoms just decide they're going to go gung-ho and just automatically hit that. Now, if you're on lower difficulties, you're not on that severe or critical, you know, you could possibly more than likely get away with hitting that A if you haven't found B and C, just to make it a bit quicker. Just bum rush through it, take out the enemies. There's going to be less enemies with those difficulties being lower. So that's one way to do it. But if you're going for severe or critical or in the Maelstrom protocol, just don't be that guy. Now, another thing to note, which could be beneficial for you later on, something you may not have known about. Now, in some of those moments when you're getting pushed pretty heavily, you know, it's that last mission, you're going for the extraction, or possibly in one of those moments where you're in the middle of that mission, you're in the second zone, things are getting a bit hectic, you've already failed the objective on that mission or that zone itself, and you need to bum rush to that extraction. You've got some people with you, you're all low on health, you're getting overwhelmed on severe or critical with some of those tormentors, spikers. You're just bum rushing for that extraction. Now, if you do make it onto that extraction site, as soon as you call in the extraction, any enemy that does come upon that pad, that little yellow hexagonal area, they will instantly be killed the second they step on that, as long as you've called in the extraction. Now, another thing to note is I've had moments where the enemies may be a little bit off in the distance from that extraction pad, but you've already started the extraction, and then you take a couple of shots from one of those spikers, or possibly there's a tormentor or something that has a projectile, and it instantly downs you. Now, thankfully, I didn't know this during that time, and I'll have the gameplay footage for you right here while I'm talking. But I went down and I thought, oh no, I didn't get into the extraction pod. My buddy was still alive. I'm not going to get extracted. I'm not going to get the full XP. Turns out anybody that does end up going into that stasis on top of the extraction pad, as long as the extraction has been called, you will still come out. Your character will still be injured. It'll just have 0 life instead of 1 or whatever small amount of life you had. But lucky enough, in some of those moments, this could be crucial for you, especially if you just made it to the extraction pad, your buddies are still there, or possibly you're carrying one of your teammates that needs to be extracted and you're getting, heavily pushed by some of these enemies. You could just drop him on that pad or just walk him over to the pad, call that extraction in, and still be able to extract. As long as you call in the extraction, doesn't matter if you die on the pad, as long as you're on that pad, you'll still get extracted, you'll still get the full XP. May be helpful for you later on, definitely something good to note, and could save you at some point, or save that experience gain for you at some point as well, if not for one of your random teammates or one of your buddies. And my last tip for this video is just going to be, take your time, take it slow, be patient with this game. You don't want to just keep bum rushing. If you have one of those missions where it's just take out some of those elite targets, obviously that's a bit of an easy one. You can go a bit gung-ho on that one, just take out enemies left and right. But if you have some of those objectives that may be a bit sensitive to enemies being alerted, just move through slow, take your time, be patient with it. Don't just get impatient with it, otherwise you're not only going to ruin your gameplay experience, but you'll ruin the teammates you're playing with or your buddies that you may be playing with. Just got to sometimes take that little bit of a stealth approach, be quick about it, but be calm and cool and collected with it. Otherwise, I just can't tell you how frustrated I get with some of those randoms that just start thinking this is Call of Duty all over again, or it's Back for Blood, and just bum rushing in. And even in Back for Blood, you kind of want to take it slow in certain portions. You want to take things out as you go. You don't exactly just want to alert everything by hitting that alarm off of one of those enemies, even though occasionally it will happen. We will have those moments where we don't see that enemy off to the left or the right, kind of off in an obscure location, goes off. But in those moments when you take it slow, you see what's going on, you've got a good grasp on your surroundings, you'll be able to fortify in those positions or those moments and take out whatever's coming after you in that. And at the same time, make a collected decision on whether or not you need to skip on to the next zone and avoid all that damage and possibly dying, or rip running, having that MIA operator. But that being said, hopefully you guys enjoyed this. Hopefully you learned a couple of things from this. If you want to see some more videos like this, let me know down in the comments down below. Definitely got a few ideas that I can run around for videos when it comes to Rainbow Six Extraction. But at the same time, we do have Dying Light 2 coming up. It's going to be taking all my time from February 4th going forward, but I'll still be playing this over the next couple of days. If you want to see some of this gameplay live, hit that link in the description. Follow me over at Twitch. I'm streaming daily. And hope you guys have a good one.